Hello, this is Michael Smith from Mr. Macabre Productions. I'm the writer and the director of the short film Sweeping Shadows, and this video is going to be sharing some behind the scenes knowledge of how this was created and what steps were taken to make it what it was. So to begin with, this project took over 7 weeks to make. We started on the 15th of January 2024 and ended on the 29th of February 2024. So to begin with, this project is of course a college project. It is in fact the third project that I made, the first one being the pet rock advertisements, which are available on this channel. So this being the third project, we were well into the year and we knew what we were doing. However, this was technically my first time actually making a fully completed short film, which is quite a surprise. I've obviously done stuff like that in the past and experimented a bit, but I've never actually made a fully fledged film for people to watch, and this was my first attempt at that. And looking back on it, I don't think it's that bad, but there is probably so much that I could change if I were to go back. So to start off with, I needed to create a mood board of inspiration and just kind of get an idea of what I wanted my story to be and what I wanted to do with the narrative and basically overall what it would become. So I had just gotten into a game at the time called Lethal Company, and this was my main inspiration for this project. You will be able to see certain similarities between the film and this game, but I didn't want to copy it exactly. I wanted to kind of make it my own sort of thing, because my ideas on creating stuff is try to make it as original as possible, even if you are taking inspiration, because the moment you just like completely rip off something, it's really not your own thing, and it's more interesting to kind of experiment and see what kind of things work and don't work, and it's a good way of seeing what mistakes you can make and how you can improve on things next time. So if you don't know what Lethal Company is, it's a video game very similar to my story. As I said, I was really into this game at the beginning of 2024 and I really enjoyed it, and that was the main inspiration. So basically the game consists of players gathering scraps from different planets while you try to dodge a bunch of really dangerous monsters. But getting the scrap from these planets earns you money to the company, and the company is like their big secret anonymous organization which will basically end your life if you do not meet the quota, which is the amount of sort of money and scraps that you total from the week of going to different planets and getting different scraps. It's a very complicated game and there's so much more to that, but that's kind of a base sort of idea about the story, and you can kind of see where I then got the idea to make the story from. But of course I did change a few things, like obviously I didn't want it to be set on Saturn, for example. I wanted it to be on Earth. One of my other inspirations was a short film that we watched actually in class. I really liked that short film. It was called Portrait of God. If you haven't watched it, I think you should go and watch it because it is genuinely terrifying but amazing. And you can see where I got the inspiration for the monster in my own short film. The monster that I made in Sweeping Shadows is almost an exact replica of the Portrait of God monster. And actually speaking quickly about the monster in Sweeping Shadows, I took that image just randomly from the internet. It really creeped me out at the time and I just decided to go with it. And I didn't know anything about it. I'd just known that I'd seen it somewhere on the internet once before, and it was just perfect for what I really wanted to make, and it really reminded me of the Portrait of God, and that's exactly why I chose it. Also, next to the ideas, I did kind of come up with my own information about what the story could be, and I have something written down here about the story summary. After another failed attempt with a subject, a mysterious caller searches for more victims. He sends new people on an unexpected mission for his own benefit. Without any choice, these people must do his dirty work by collecting valuable scraps. However, imminent danger approaches, which gives our protagonists a challenge to keep their lives. Surprisingly, things do not go to plan for the antagonist, as the creatures around the area are no match whatsoever for these slightly insane protagonists. They fight their way through and end up surviving. The antagonist ends up being in complete shock because of these completely bizarre events. So that's basically the summary of the story before I actually fully wrote it and everything, which is actually very interesting because you can see like my idea to begin with, and then you can see what it is when it was fully made. So the way that my work is split up in college is there are a bunch of different things that I have to write about. So the first bit is basically an introduction to the project and why we think we're doing the project. That's all that is. Then the second part is going into research and finding out a bunch of stuff about the short film that we are wanting to make and how we will want to make it. Then it's followed by pre-production, which is basically prepping for the actual recording, and then after that it's of course the recording where all our filming has taken place, before then going to the editing and then evaluating what that final product is, and that's pretty much it. So I do actually have the original story that I wrote down, but it is dreadful. It is genuinely horrible because it was my first time actually writing a story in God knows how long, and I kind of had to learn a bunch of things again, but in the end it was actually quite good. And then for my projects that I've been going on since, it has been really strong. Going back to the story, actually there was a whole like scene that was cut out, and the reason for it being cut out is because we simply just didn't have enough time to actually get it down recorded. There are a few places that we filmed that we didn't really have enough time to film in. So two of the places that we filmed in were at home in my garage. Literally the scenes where it looks like it's inside a garage, that is a garage. And then we also filmed in a photography studio inside the college, which was actually full of a bunch of black curtains, which is what you see in the final product. Now looking back, it's not that amazing, I'm going to be honest. Funnily enough, the project after this is a sequel to Sweeping Shadows, and it's so much better than what this was. We didn't get permission to film in the photography studio that time, and that will be covered later on when I do that behind the scenes video. The photography studio was really fun to film in, but we didn't have access to it constantly. It was actually really difficult to kind of get everything done. We had so much that I wanted to film, and I was very over ambitious with this. To put it in perspective, the amount that they wanted us to do for a short film was about 3 to 5 minutes. So my 12-minute-ish short film probably shouldn't have been that long, I'm going to be honest. We did actually do a bunch of storyboards actually, but this was at the time where I was using Microsoft Paint to make the actual storyboards, and they look genuinely terrible. Since then I've actually been hand drawing them myself, and they've looked so much better. Going back to the actual story, the scene that we cut out was just before Connor and Jenny reunite. Jenny was actually supposed to see a monster herself that would run at her, and then she would just beat the living hell out of it, which is another one of the comedy aspects, I suppose, but we didn't have time to film that, and so we just completely scrapped it, and it ended up being what's shown in the story. Also, we did actually film another bit that wasn't in the final edit. The bit where Jenny is looking at the battery power source, whatever the hell that was. That was originally supposed to be Connor doing that, so you can kind of see a big change in that aspect, I suppose. But they were basically the big changes that happened. I don't think anything else really changed that much. When it came to filming, of course it was a lot of struggle. We went through a lot of issues that could have been avoided, and it was kind of annoying. We did the house scenes first, if I recall correctly, and that went probably the smoothest out of all the recordings. We used the lounge area and the kitchen, and that was literally it. The photography studio bits where we filmed in like the dark cloaked areas, they were filmed over the course of several days. We didn't know how much time we had. There were some people who actually needed to use the photography studio at some points, and so we were kind of kicked out once or twice, which wasn't great. I got a lot of nice feedback when it originally came out back in February. People really seemed to like it, and it honestly made me want to really act on that improvement. It was really fun. I think the stress wasn't worth it, and what came next was even more stressful, and I just didn't need that. Actually, currently as I'm recording this, I am working on a project right now. Literally when this comes out, I will be working on a project, and I'm at the editing stage at the moment. It'll probably take a few months for this to actually come out, but it has been so smooth this time. It's about 11-12 minutes long, and it has been really easy to make because I've gone a completely different genre. You can see the improvements, and I'm hoping that you will be able to see the improvements improvements too. I'll put up a bunch of production images, behind the scenes images right now of us like setting up the scenes and what it was like filming in those areas. It was fun. We enjoyed doing it, both me and Lana. We really did enjoy doing it, but what I'm really bad at is kind of cutting down on stuff, because I want things to make sense, and that then adds on like an extra minute of storytelling, which isn't ideal all the time. So I have managed to cut it down this time, and I'm very thankful for that, to be completely honest. Editing was easy. Editing has always been easy for me. I don't think there's anything that really needs to be said about that. I edited on Premiere Pro, which is a whole new thing that I had edited on. I'm used to using Wondershare Filmora to edit stuff. I've edited a bunch of videos in the past using that. So Premiere Pro was a whole new side of things, and it did take me a while to learn, but I can safely say now that I've learnt it and I understand how it works. Here's again some more behind the scenes images of me editing and doing different scenes. The hooded figure and the intercom were originally both voice changes, but the intercom was switched for the YouTube version because originally it sounded horrendous and I needed to have that change, and I decided to use my own voice saying some different lines, and it ended up being what it is in the final cut. It's actually a really good point to bring up. So the original version that I made for college is completely different to the one that is now on this channel. After I'd made it for college, I didn't instantly go to put it on here. I wanted to edit things and make things better because there were a lot that I just didn't like. So hopefully what I edited back was a lot more interesting and a lot more precise in storytelling than how I originally did it before. Obviously, people who aren't familiar with the original version, you won't have seen it, so there's no worry about that. But if you liked the new version, then you'll be sure to like what comes next. There's still definitely some things that I wish I could have changed, but I'd have to go back and actually record the things to change them. So there's definitely no going there, and still I'm happy with how it turned out, even if there is a lot I could change. The theme for Sweeping Shadows is something I just randomly found. It sounded cool, it sounded sci-fi, really sort of special, and I wanted that to be included in my film. I always love doing kind of intro and outro-y stuff. It's really fun to do that once you've built up all the project, and I always try to do something really special with the credits, so that's a good point for me as well. So then moving on to kind of like the ending of things, I did actually make a poster which I've promoted on the Mr. Macabre Instagram but nowhere else. The poster, the revamped poster should I say, is something I'm very happy with. As a summary, I really couldn't be happier with how this turned out, but at the same time I've kind of got to that level where I have done enough, and if I were to do more it'd be very difficult to do so. But that is about it. Stay tuned for the sequel to Sweeping Shadows, which is called Awakening Curses. We see Connor and Jenny come back after the events of Sweeping Shadows and attempt to destroy what the company is, basically. I hope you enjoyed that little behind the scenes look of Sweeping Shadows. I'm going to leave it there. So with that, thank you so much for watching. But yeah, that's about it. I've been Michael Smith from Mr. Macabre Productions, and thank you for watching.